So right now we are going to start making molds for the Barbarian. The Barbarian will be, we'll make molds for it in a different way we have done so far. Normally, what we have done so far, we make this these boxes with the master inside, and then we pour the silicone in, and then we pressurize the silicone in one of those pressure pots, and the pressure, you know, compresses the silicone inside the mold and smashes the air bubble. So, but because the Barbarian was sculpted in wax, Aaron is concerned that the pressure of the pressure pot might crush the wax in, and then destroy the master before we have molds. And that would be terrible, because wax, once we take it out of the mold, it breaks, and we would then have no molds and no master. So it would be a total disaster. So to avoid doing that, we are going to make molds in the total different system. We are going to use silicone, of course, but instead of pressurizing it, we are going to degas it. So, and what I mean by degas is putting the silicone inside what we call a vacuum chamber that is right there. Let me see if I'm taking a good look at the press. Okay, so right there, that is the vacuum chamber, that little white thing over there with the air compressor. Okay, so that's a vacuum chamber, and what this does is that everything we put inside, I mean, once we close the lid, that air compressor sucks the air from inside that pot, and then creates a vacuum. So the vacuum extracts the air out of the silicone, and then we can then pour the silicone inside the boxes here. Once the silicone has no air, we then gently pour the silicone in here, and then we have the same results as if we pressurize the molds. This is the silicone here we're going to be using now. This basically the same thing. The catalyst is blue. It's a different formula, but basically the same thing, but different at the same time. So Aaron will be here to make molds for the Barbarian right now. We have so far made boxes for the hands and the legs, the torso, is here, but we realized that the collar, the collar that we sculpted for him, the necklace here, it's a little bit different once we checked on the actual painting that I have in my house, where the actual painting I got from the Frazetta family. So we noticed that the necklace is a little bit different, so we're going to change that, and once we fix the necklace, then we're going to make molds of this other part. Everything else we're going to be making molds right now.
And I had a little blue bucket that fit perfectly inside of that, and now I don't know where it is.
Okay, so
we just got to find another. That's what I was just looking for, and I didn't see it.
So I can already tell you we don't have it, anything like that.
Yeah.
We need to go out and buy.
Right.
So Spencer, would you mind going and getting that for us?
This is the price you pay for not using good reference. I was using this photograph that we like blew up off the internet, and it just, you know, low resolution didn't do the trick, so I made some, I guess there were minor errors in the necklace, but we're not going to let it slide. So we got a good reproduction of the painting for the details, and just making a last pass over everything, making sure it's as accurate as it can be. We also made adjustments on the knife. There were a few details that I missed on that too, so it's printing the new knife. That's it. Guess we're gonna make molds.
So you think that one is big enough?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to mix a few times, but I've always done that. Mix and pour.
That was the biggest one I found without having to go to Lowe's. Maybe with Lowe's we can find a bigger one.
It's fine. It'll work.
Because I wanted to go to this place. I wanted to go to this place because I needed other things like gloves and, you know, lacquer thinner, all this.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but that glove is good. This is great. But, so my concern here is we don't need to pressurize, right? So the moment that you pour that in, it doesn't matter if it starts hardening, right? You can then.
And I'm gonna mix it 10 to 1. It's gonna take 16 hours. So.
Okay. So, but once you pour, like say, this whole bucket here, we're gonna need another. It makes no difference if you make another batch.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. That's what I imagined. So.
Oh, so you pressurize the silicone. So.
Well, we're not going to pressurize anything on this one. Just going to.
Because I mean, so you pressurize the silicone, but you don't pressurize the mold.
Can I ask you just one thing before you start mixing silicone?
Yeah.
Let's test this and see
I just did.
You tested it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it's working, then my only concern is that if this is actually working.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So I can give you guys some. I don't have the experience with mold making that Arham does. We have different ways of doing things, and this is a pretty specific way. It takes longer. It's a little bit more tedious. But one thing that's interesting about this is if you ever wondered how to measure how much silicone you need for a mold, the general rule of thumb is you multiply the measurements of the box that you're pouring, or the container that you're pouring the silicone into. So in this circumstance, so you know, volume is height, width, depth, multiply them. But then to get the weight of the silicone, because I'm going to measure it by weight, Generally, silicone is about 18 grams per square inch, I believe. So what you do is you multiply height, width, volume, or height, width, depth of the box, multiply it by 18, and that gives you the measurement by weight of the silicone that you need. So let's do it. So it's about 9 inches wide, 5 inches deep, and then the legs inside the box, because we don't need to fill this thing all the way to the top. The legs inside the box, right about 13 inches. So we'll call it we'll call it 14 to be safe. So 9 times 5 times 14. Get out your calculator or your iPhone, whatever, your cheat sheet. Nine times 5 times 14 times 18. 11,000 grams. That's a lot. So I have 2 other boxes to measure, so let's do those.
Take measurements, huh?
Always.
That's nice. Just teasing you.
I don't trust myself.
No, it's different that the first time I was showing people and said, well, you do it like...
Well, that's what I was just saying. Arham and I have different methods. So. This is why he makes most of the molds, because if I was doing it, we'd still be making molds for the Death Dealer 3.
Oh my. Yeah, no, you go by the color. Notice the color looks good.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this silicone because if we actually don't have to cook,
Yeah.
and it's as good as this one here.
Yeah. You pay, that's 45, 50 pounds. It was $460.
Yeah. Well, the price is the same.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm going to consider buying this one from now on if I can do everything I do with this one.
Where are those rubber gloves?
We just bought more.
Right here.
If you want to use this or this one, I think this one is better. That other one is the kind of glove that Alex would buy. But whatever. Well, I'll leave you to your work. I'm gonna go back to mine.
Yeah, I'll let you know, like, I'm doing something exciting.
Making molds is something I don't need to watch.
Yeah.
Nothing interesting there that I haven't seen before thousands of times.
Yep. Arham doesn't wear gloves when he makes the silicone, but I don't like washing my hands with acetone.
Well,
He's a tough guy, I'm not.
I don't wear gloves, I don't wear masks, I don't wear anything. People say, well, no, you should be wearing masks when you're painting those statues. And you know what, guys? I don't wear masks, I don't wear gloves, and whatever.
I hope he's a superhero, because that's the only way he's going to be impervious to all this.
Well, good luck, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to my computer here.
Just so you guys can see this, it's nothing special. I'm using a postage scale, and this is going to take a bunch of pours, but I'm using a postage scale to measure the weight of this thing. So this is the silicone. Measure it in grams. So it's like 2,100 grams without the weight of the bucket, because you have to factor that in too. So then this is the catalyst, and like Arhan was saying, he mixes it by eyesight, like color. I don't trust myself well enough to do that, so I go by the old tried and true 10-to-1 catalyst to silicone. So right now we've got 2,100 grams in this bucket, so I need like 210 grams of catalyst. So you just pour until that'll hit 2420, right? So I throw it in the vacuum chamber, and it'll start bubbling up when it hits about 20 to 25 inches of vacuum. And I'll probably have to do it a couple times because as the air is escaping out of the silicone, it like builds inside, like increases in volume dramatically. It'll almost double. So I gotta degas it and do it again until it stops rising, and then it like sucks down on itself, and that means all the air is out. So it'll probably take a couple times. That's pretty much it, honestly. After that, it's just pouring. I'm sure Arham has gone all over that with you, so.
What was that?
I was just talking about pouring, you know, like. You just gotta do it a couple times.
Show this. Yeah, I can show this. That's something interesting to show.
Right. So right now, like this bucket is actually only about half full with silicone because air is escaping, it builds in volume. So you can see, like I said, it was going to take a couple times to do it because it rises like to the top and it would overflow. But now we've hit the point where it's pulling all the air out of the silicone finally, and now it's collapsing back in on itself. And once that thing collapses all the way back down to what the volume should be, I usually let it go for about another minute and then pull it out of there, and it's good to pour. And obviously it looks like there's still air bubbles in it, and there may be, but because I'm letting the silicone cure for 15 to 16 hours, the weight of the silicone inside the mold during that time period will push any remaining air bubbles back up out of the box that it's in. So.
That's very interesting.
It looks like a James Bond sci-fi.
Well, that's another system to make molds. And, yeah, it was never my favorite, to be honest, but I'm sure it works, and the result will be as good as any other way. So yeah.
Yeah, like Arham said earlier, we chose to use this method for fear of damaging the Barbarian, because the way I sculpt, I often apply layers on layers on layers of wax, and sometimes there's air trapped between those layers, and if we pressurized it, there's a chance that the pressure could collapse those air pockets and then damage the sculpt, and it would essentially, I mean, it wouldn't be ruined, but we'd lose the mold, we'd lose the rubber.
It would be ruined after we tried to get the mass out
Right,
of the mold.
it would take days and days to fix it, so I just figured better safe than sorry. And
so you sure it's done? Is that all?
Oh yeah,
all you need?
That's it.
Don't need to wait until there's no more air whatsoever.
No, it'll keep pulling. It would keep pulling out more and more forever and ever. So like, even though it appears that there are bubbles in there, there are. The combination of the vacuum with the long cure time gets rid of all the bubbles.
Okay, man. You're the expert on this method.
And we're gonna have to do this a couple times because this is an enormous mold. Actually, are you concerned at all about the weight of the silicone pushing this thing apart?
Well, since there won't be any pressure, I think the box will hold.
All right.
If there was pressure, and then I would definitely make those walls reinforced.
Right.
But since we're just pouring, I'm confident this will be enough. But I might be wrong. We'll see.
Yeah, we got it. We may end up having to like put tape around it or something to.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So this is just for you guys to know. A very expensive mold. It's gonna cost us like $500 just in silicone alone. So it's not something we would like to do twice.
Yeah.
You know.
These are the risks we take.
Yeah. We don't want to mess up with this, so we're gonna do it very carefully. And besides, I was already getting tired of pink silicone.
Yeah, this I know that there are guys that mix this by color, and they say mix it till it looks like a robin's egg blue. So that's about where it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I do the pink one. I know the tone of the pink by memory already, so. That's one of the hands. So another difference too is that this method takes longer to cure the silicone. So probably we're talking about what, 16 hours, 24 hours?
16 hours.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit faster because it's warm and humid.
Yeah.
So, or warm and dry. So it might speed up.
But since we're not going to be opening this before tomorrow anyway, we're gonna give it enough time for the silicone to cure. Okay, let's go back to the tripod. Oh, by the way, here's my Barbarian painting, the one I have at my house. I brought it here just for us to check a few things. I don't know if we can show that with the camera, but if you guys notice, the Barbarian chest has hair. So we're going to try to copy that on the sculpture by adding some hair on the Barbarian chest. We also noticed that the knife here has some jewels encrusted on the handle. So we didn't have that before, we're gonna do it. And lastly is the color that was different, the one we sculpted from this one. So we noticed a few of those things because the resolution on the original print is much higher than the pictures we see on the internet. And then we were able to spot those details. So there goes again, Aaron. It's going to do one more bucket, and it's probably going to take
Quite a few.
yeah, quite a few, yeah, at least 4 or 5. probably this one will do. Maybe tiny little more, maybe, but basically this one will do.
Yep.
You know that pushing air into the also helps break the bubbles. Actually, a smaller is better than a big one because it has less air to suck out of. You know? The one I had was so big that this little thing here wasn't powerful enough. I think that was one of the reasons why I had such a bad experience with mine.
Probably.